Emily, is something wrong with the casserole? Nora asked with a stiff smile, eyes glinting with something unspoken. Oh no, it's unique, I said, trying to smile through the salt burning my tongue. Max, have you ever had something like this? Max looked up from his plate, his brow furrowed. I haven't, but it's, definitely different. Nora's glare was cutting. She quickly turned her attention back to her plate. Silence hung over the table like a thick fog. I shifted in my seat, glancing at Max to see if he noticed. He chewed quietly, pretending everything was fine. My stomach churned, but not from the overly salty casserole. I took a deep breath and decided to try breaking the ice. Nora, I've found this great recipe for chicken pot pie. Would you like to try it sometime? Nora's eyes flicked to me. Oh, I wouldn't dream of changing my recipes. They've been in the family for years. I bit back an automatic retort. Sure, I understand. Just thought you might want to try something new. Max reached over and squeezed my hand under the table, trying to comfort me. I gave him a small smile, but the unease gnawed at my mind. As dinner dragged on, I could feel Nora's gaze burning into me every time I forced down another bite of her cooking. Later that night, Max and I were getting ready for bed. He slipped his arm around my waist, pulling me close. You really don't have to eat Mom's cooking if you don't like it, he murmured into my ear. I know, but I want to make a good impression. It's important for me to get along with her, for us. Max sighed and kissed the top of my head. It's tough, isn't it? Yeah, I said, my voice barely above a whisper. But it will get better. The next day at work, I threw myself into my projects. The marketing campaign I was leading was demanding, and it kept my mind off the previous night's dinner. But as the day wore on, a sense of dread began to build. There was another family dinner coming up. Back at home, I leafed through cookbooks and browsed recipes online. I knew I had to do something to smooth things over with Nora. It couldn't be this hard to find a middle ground, right? You know, all my friends think it's weird we go to your parents' house so often. I chuckled later that evening as I showed Max a couple of new recipes. Yeah, but it makes them happy, Max shrugged. And I want to keep everyone happy. Everyone? I raised an eyebrow, teasing him. Everyone, you included. Well, if that's the case, maybe we can take a break and cook something here, I suggested. Just a thought. Max smiled and kissed my forehead. We'll see, but I do appreciate how hard you're trying. Thanks. Days blurred into routines at work and uneasy dinners at Nora's house. Each time I felt the gap between us widening. Nora's passive-aggressive comments and her stubbornness built a wall I couldn't break through. So, I searched for advice, calling friends discreetly for tips on how to handle difficult in-laws. They offered sympathy and recipes, but nothing seemed to work with Nora. Still, I pressed on, hoping that one day Nora would accept me and things would finally get better. My days at the marketing firm kept me busy. I enjoyed the buzz of creativity and the hustle of meeting deadlines. It was a world where I felt confident and in control. But as soon as I stepped outside the office, the weight of Nora's scrutiny threatened to crush my every move. Hey, Emily, how's it going with the in-laws? Asked Jenna, my colleague, as we grabbed lunch. It's a work in progress, I replied, choosing my words carefully. Nora's not the easiest person to get close to. Jenna laughed. Just be yourself. Sooner or later, she'll come around. Yeah, let's hope, I said, though doubt tingled at the edge of my mind. Max picked me up from work that evening. As we drove home, he glanced over. Mom called. She wants us over for dinner again this weekend. Again? I sighed. We just had dinner there 2 nights ago. I know, but she insists, Max said, looking apologetic. I told her we'd come. All right, I said, trying to sound enthused but feeling a growing pit in my stomach. Back home, Max flipped through TV channels while I prepared the salad for dinner. As I chopped vegetables, my mind wandered, considering how best to approach Nora without causing a scene. You okay, Em? Max's voice broke through my thoughts. Yeah, just thinking. About dinner with Mom? Yeah, I guess. I just wish it didn't feel like walking on eggshells. I get it, he said, placing a reassuring hand on my shoulder. But maybe this time will be different. Saturday came too quickly. We pulled up to Nora's house and the familiar dread washed over me. Inside, Nora greeted us with a tight smile, her eyes cold as she hugged Max tightly. Dinner's almost ready, she announced, her tone lacking warmth. As we sat down, I tried to engage in small talk, asking about her garden and if she had any new projects in mind. Nora responded with curt answers, clearly uninterested. Max's father, Raymond, joined us at the table. He was always pleasant, his presence a buffer against the tension. How's work, Emily? He asked, his voice genuinely curious. Busy, but good. We just launched a new campaign, I said, grateful for the distraction. That's wonderful, Raymond smiled warmly. As dinner progressed, I noticed something strange. The food seemed intentionally oversalted again. My suspicion grew with each bite. Nora, this stew is really something, I said, carefully neutral. Nora's lips tightened. An old family recipe. Max took a bite and immediately reached for his water. Wow, that's a strong flavor. Nora's eyes narrowed slightly, a flicker of something dark crossing her face. Really? I followed the recipe exactly. Raymond seemed oblivious as he continued eating, but Max looked at me with concern. After dinner, I helped clear the table, Nora's silence weighing heavily in the room. Thanks for dinner, Nora, I said, trying to soften the awkwardness. She didn't meet my eyes. You're welcome. On the drive home, Max finally spoke. What's going on between you and Mom? I don't know. It's like she's trying to push me away, I admitted. I try so hard, Max, but nothing works. We'll figure it out, he said firmly. I promise. I leaned back, exhausted. I hope so. As we pulled into our driveway, a thought struck me. Maybe this wasn't just about me. Maybe Nora had her reasons for her actions, and it was up to me to find out what they were. Whether it led to resolution or more conflict, one thing was certain. This wasn't over yet. Emily, I have good news, Dr. Hastings announced as she entered the examination room. I sat up, my heart pounding in my chest. What is it? She handed me a pamphlet with a smile. Congratulations, Emily, you're pregnant. The words hit me like a tidal wave. Shock quickly morphed into joy, and I reached for my phone to call Max. Max, you won't believe this. We're going to be parents. Max's reaction was immediate and ecstatic. I'm going to be a dad, he exclaimed. That's incredible, Emily. We met later that evening, his hands gently touching my stomach, eyes filled with wonder. I can't believe it, he murmured. We need to find the perfect way to tell our families. We should wait a bit, just to be sure everything's okay, I suggested. Maybe after the first trimester? Max nodded. You're right, but this is so exciting. That night, I lay awake, my mind racing. The thought of bringing a child into the world filled me with a mix of excitement and anxiety. How would Nora react? The idea of sharing the news with her sent a shiver down my spine. Are you okay? Max asked, noticing my restless state. Yeah, just thinking about how everything will change, I said, trying to mask my concerns. The next morning, I began to take extra care with my diet, determined to ensure the best for our baby. I carefully prepared balanced meals, avoiding anything that might be harmful. However, the impending dinners at Nora's house loomed large in my mind. Emily, you seem different lately, Nora commented during our next family dinner, her eyes scrutinizing me. I forced a smile. Just busy with work, I guess. Are you sure that's all? Her tone was suspicious, almost accusatory. I met her gaze evenly. Positive. Dinner passed uneventfully, though Nora's eyes never left me. Finally, I couldn't take it anymore. Nora, do you think we could maybe have some lighter meals? I've been feeling a bit off lately and thought it might help. Nora's eyes narrowed. You don't like my cooking, do you? No, it's not that, I said quickly. Just trying to take care of myself. Her lips curled into a tight smile. If you say so. The tension was palpable as we left. As soon as we were in the car, Max turned to me. What was that all about? I don't know, I sighed, but something feels off. The following weeks were a whirlwind of doctor appointments and careful planning. Every time we visited Nora, I found excuses to avoid her food. Each time, her suspicion grew. One evening, while browsing through books on pregnancy, I stumbled upon a worrying thought. What if the constant tension with Nora affected the baby? I knew I had to tread carefully. Emily, are you sure you're okay? Max asked again one night as I lay awake, unable to sleep. Yes, just worried, I admitted. About everything. He kissed my forehead. We'll get through this, Em. Together. As I drifted off to sleep, the uncertainty of our future loomed large, but so did the hope of a new beginning. Our lives were about to change forever, and I was determined to protect our growing family, no matter what it took. Dinner at Nora's house had never been more stressful. Now that I was pregnant, I had to be extra cautious about what I was eating. But how was I going to handle this without arousing Nora's suspicion even further? I thought about it all the way to the door. Raymond greeted us warmly as always. Come in, he said, ushering us inside. We made our way to the dining room, but my stomach churned, for different reasons this time. Max's touch on my arm was reassuring, but I knew tonight would not be easy. Nora placed a casserole on the table, her eyes flickering toward me with that now familiar edge. I hope you like it, Emily, she said, her voice dripping with saccharine politeness. I forced a smile and nodded. I'm sure I will, Nora. Thank you. We all sat down, and as the plates were passed around, I scooped a small portion onto mine, my mind racing for a plausible excuse to avoid eating it. Maybe I could claim I'd forgotten to take my prenatal vitamins and needed to take them with food from home where I knew I could control the ingredients. Halfway through the meal, it became clear Nora was watching my every move. I pushed the food around my plate, trying to make it look like I'd eaten more than I had. You barely touched your food, Emily, Nora said, her eyes narrowing. Is something wrong? No, it's just that. I hesitated. I've been feeling a bit queasy lately. Queasy, huh? Nora's suspicion seemed to deepen, and the room grew silent. Max intervened. Emily's just being careful with her diet, Mom. You know how it is. I see, Nora replied with a tight smile. Well, perhaps you should see a doctor if it continues. Oh, I've already been, I replied, trying to keep my tone light. It's nothing serious. As dinner wrapped up, I excused myself to the restroom, needing a moment to breathe. The air felt suffocating, and as I splashed water on my face, I heard the door creak open. Emily? Nora's voice was ice cold. I turned, my pulse quickening. Yes, Nora. You don't like my cooking, do you? Her eyes bored into mine. It's not that, I started, but she cut me off. Don't lie to me. You've been avoiding my meals for weeks now. You're hiding something, she hissed. I felt my pulse quicken. I'm just trying to eat healthier for the baby. For the baby, she mimicked derisively. Well, we'll see about that. With that, she turned and walked away, leaving me with a chilling sense of dread. I returned to the table, my hands trembling. Later that night, back at home, I tried to explain it all to Max. She knows something's up. She's getting more aggressive. Max looked troubled. Maybe we should stop eating there for a while, just until things calm down. I think that's a good idea, I agreed. I need to focus on the baby and avoid unnecessary stress. Absolutely, he said, hugging me tightly. We'll get through this together. As sleep finally claimed me that night, I knew the coming months would be challenging. Avoiding Nora and her increasingly vile behavior was only part of the battle. The other part was ensuring our child came into a world where he or she would be safe and loved, and for that, I was ready to do whatever it took. Remember, if anything feels off, we're leaving, Max said as we pulled up to his parents' house for yet another family dinner. I nodded, feeling a mix of anxiety and resolve. Raymond opened the door with his usual warmth. Come in, it's great to see you both. As we stepped inside, Nora appeared from the kitchen, her face perfectly composed. Dinner's almost ready, she announced, her eyes briefly meeting mine before sliding away. Seated at the table, I tried to steady my nerves. The food looked as presentable as always, but I couldn't shake the nagging suspicion. Dinner's served, Nora said with too much enthusiasm, placing an elaborate dish in front of us. I poked at the food, and out of the corner of my eye I noticed a strange odor. My instinct shouted a warning. Max, can we swap plates? I whispered. Why? He asked, looking puzzled. Just, can we? I insisted, my voice barely above a whisper. He frowned, but complied. As the plate trading was happening, Nora's eyes widened in alarm. Max, no, that piece is spoiled, she shrieked. The room froze. Raymond's fork clattered onto his plate. Max stared at his mother in disbelief. Mom, what are you talking about? A cold chill ran down my spine. You fed me expired food on purpose? My voice was filled with disbelief and hurt. Nora's expression hardened. She's not really family, she spat out, the venom in her voice unmistakable. Max's face went pale. Mom, how could you? He demanded, his voice shaking with anger. Raymond looked stunned, struggling to find words. Nora, what have you done? Nora crossed her arms defiantly. I did what I had to. She doesn't belong here. The room felt like it was closing in around us. I stood up, my legs trembling, but firm in my decision. I can't believe you would stoop so low, Nora. You put my health and our baby's health at risk. Max stood beside me, his anger now controlled but intense. We're leaving. Come on, Emily. As we turned to go, Nora called out, You can't take my son away from me. Max turned back, his face set in granite. You did this, Mom. You drove us away. Raymond got up and walked toward us, his face filled with sorrow and apology. I'm truly sorry, Emily. I had no idea. I nodded, tears blurring my vision. Thank you, Raymond. Finally, we walked out the door and stepped into the cool night air. My heart pounded, adrenaline still coursing through my veins. Driving home, Max reached over and took my hand. We did the right thing, Emily. We need to protect our family. I nodded, grateful for his support. Thank you for standing by me. We're in this together, he said firmly. Back home, I settled into bed, still shaken by the evening's events. Max lay beside me, his presence a constant comfort. Despite the turmoil, a sense of relief washed over me. We had faced Nora's true colors, and now we could move forward, prioritizing our safety and well-being. As I drifted off to sleep, one thought resonated. I would do anything to protect our baby, and no one, not even Nora, would stand in my way. The confrontation with Nora left us shaken, but determined. The decision was clear. We had to confront her and make sure she understood the gravity of what she had done. The following morning, Max and I invited Raymond to our house to plan the confrontation. Raymond arrived, looking weary but resolved. "I'm still in shock," he said, shaking his head. Nora's behavior was reprehensible. "I agree," Max said, his voice composed but filled with steely determination. "We need to confront her together, as a family, and let her know that we won't tolerate this." I nodded. It's important for her to face the consequences. We arranged to meet at Nora's house later that afternoon. Max drove, his grip on the wheel tight. I sat beside him, replaying the incident in my mind, trying to muster the strength for what was to come. Raymond followed in his car, his expression grim. As we approached the house, the atmosphere felt heavy with tension. Max knocked on the door, and Nora opened it, her face a mix of surprise and defiance. "Can we come in?" Max asked, his tone brooking no argument. Nora stepped aside reluctantly. We walked into the living room, settling on the couch. The air was thick with unspoken words. "What is this about?" Nora asked, crossing her arms. Max didn't waste time. "Mom, we're here to talk about what happened last night." "That was a misunderstanding," Nora said quickly, her eyes flashing defensively. "No, it wasn't," Max countered, his voice firm, unyielding. "You put Emily's health and our baby's health at risk. There's no misunderstanding about that." Raymond interjected, his voice calm but forceful. "Nora, I've supported you for years, but what you did was dangerous and cruel. We need answers." Nora's bravado faltered. "I did it because I don't trust her," she said, pointing at me. "She's not good enough for you, Max." My anger flared. "How can you say that? What I've done to deserve this treatment?" "You've taken my son away," Nora snapped, her voice rising. "He spends more time with you than with his own family." "Emily is my family now," Max said, stepping closer to his mother. "And you need to accept that." Nora looked stricken. "So you're choosing her over me?" "I'm choosing to protect my wife and child," Max said firmly. "And until you can respect that, we won't be coming back." Raymond stood beside Max, his expression resolute. "Until you change, Nora, you'll have to face the consequences of your actions alone." Tears welled in Nora's eyes, but her expression remained defiant. "You're all against me." "No," I said softly. "You did this to yourself." Max turned to me. "Emily, let's go." We walked out of the house together, leaving Nora standing there, a solitary figure in the doorway. The finality of our actions weighed heavily, but it was necessary. As we drove away, a sense of relief washed over me. Max reached for my hand, his grip reassuring. "I'm sorry it came to this, but we made the right choice." "I know," I said, looking out at the passing scenery. "Now we can focus on our future without the shadow of her toxicity." Raymond followed us back, silent and reflective. When we arrived, he finally spoke. "I'll do what I can to help Nora see the error of her ways. But for now, ensure your safety and well-being." "Thank you, Raymond," I said, feeling grateful for his support. "We appreciate it more than you know." Max and I watched as Raymond drove away, the burden of recent events lessening with each moment. As we stood together, I knew whatever lay ahead, we could face it together, stronger and more united than ever. Packing up our home felt surreal. Boxes stacked high with our belongings, the walls bare and empty. It was a fresh start we desperately needed, but it still felt strange to leave behind so many memories. Max taped up the last box and turned to me. "You ready?" "As ready as I'll ever be," I replied, taking his hand. "This is our new beginning." We loaded the boxes into the car, and I glanced back at our house one last time. "It's hard to believe we're moving on," I said softly. Max nodded. "But it's necessary." Raymond stood by the car, his face somber. "You two take care of each other. I'll help Nora see reason, but I can't guarantee anything." "Thank you, Raymond," I said, hugging him. "We appreciate everything you've done." We drove away, the road stretching out in front of us like a promise. As we reached the outskirts of town, Max sighed. "This is it. A new chapter." "Yes," I agreed, squeezing his hand. "And it's going to be a good one." It wasn't long before we settled into our new home, a cozy place far from Nora's reach. The change of scenery brought a sense of peace and safety that had been missing for too long. One evening, Max was reading in the living room when his phone rang. He checked the caller ID and frowned. "It's my mom," he said, his voice filled with hesitation. I looked up from my book. "Answer it." Max picked up the phone. "Hello, Mom." Nora's voice was strained. "Max, I'm sorry. Please come back. We miss you." Max looked at me, torn. "Mom, it's not that simple. I know I made mistakes," she said, her voice cracking, "but I want to make things right." He took a deep breath. "We need time, Mom. Time to heal and adjust. You can't cut me out forever." "That," she pleaded. "You're my son." "I'm not cutting you out, but you need to understand the damage you caused," Max replied, his voice firm. "We need to protect our family." "Our family," she echoed bitterly. "So she's more important than your own mother?" "Emily is my family now, too," he said patiently, "and I won't let anyone hurt her, not even you." Nora's voice grew icy. "You'll regret this." Max's face hardened. "I don't think we will. Goodbye, Mom." He hung up the phone and let out a deep sigh. I can't believe how manipulative she can be. I walked over and hugged him. "We did what we had to do." "I know," he said, his voice heavy with emotion, "but it doesn't make it any easier." Weeks passed, and our lives settled into a new routine. The peace was occasionally disrupted by attempts from Nora to reach out, but we maintained our distance. One afternoon, Raymond visited us. His face was etched with sadness. "Nora's refusing to accept responsibility," he said, sitting down. "She remains adamant that she did nothing wrong." "I'm so sorry, Raymond," I said softly. "This can't be easy for you." "It isn't," he admitted, "but I need to support you and Max. You made the right choice for your family." In the months that followed, Nora's attempts to contact us grew less frequent. It seemed she was finally beginning to understand the consequences of her actions. We continued to focus on building our lives, embracing the joy of our growing family. One evening, as we watched the sunset from our porch, Max took my hand and smiled. "We've been through so much, but I wouldn't change a thing. It's made us stronger." I rested my head on his shoulder. "You're right, and we have so much to look forward to." As the sun dipped below the horizon, the future felt bright and full of promise. We had faced the darkness and come out stronger, ready to embrace whatever came next. Our new life took root in ways I could have never imagined. Nearly 2 years had passed since we moved, and although the memories of Nora's malice lingered, they no longer had power over us. Max lifted our daughter, Claire, into the air, making her giggle uncontrollably. "Our little girl is growing up so fast," he said, smiling. I watched them with a warmth in my heart. "She is, and she's safe and happy. That's all that matters." Claire clapped her hands, signaling she wanted to be swung around again. Max obliged, and the sound of her laughter filled the room. It was the kind of joy that marked a fresh start, devoid of the darkness from before. One evening, as I was preparing dinner, Max's phone buzzed. He glanced at it, his expression turning serious. "It's Nora," he said, his voice neutral. "She still tries?" I asked, shaken by the thought of her reaching out yet again. Max nodded. "This is the first time she's called in months." "Answer it," I said quietly. "Let's see what she has to say." Max took a deep breath and accepted the call, putting it on speaker. "Max, it's Nora." Her voice came through, strained and tentative. "I miss you all terribly. Please, can we talk?" Max remained calm. "What is there to talk about, Mom?" "I know I did wrong," her voice cracked. "But I'm truly sorry. I can't bear the thought of missing more of Claire's life. Please, I want to make amends." I picked Claire up and began to rock her gently, steadying my own feelings. "Why should we believe you now after everything you did?" Max asked. "Because I've had time to reflect," she replied, desperation creeping into her voice. "I realize now how much I pushed you away. I see the harm I caused." "We needed you to see that before, but you didn't listen," Max said. "I know, and I can't take it back," Nora said, her tone pleading. "But please, give me a chance to prove I've changed." I took the phone from Max. "Nora, your actions put my health and Claire's health at risk. How can we trust you?" A heavy silence followed. "I understand your hesitation," Nora finally said, "but I'm asking for one last chance. If not for me, then for Claire. She deserves to know her grandmother." Max and I exchanged glances. I could see the conflict in his eyes, his compassion wrestling with the betrayal we'd suffered. "I'll think about it," I said bluntly, "but this isn't something that can be mended overnight." "Thank you," Nora said, her voice breaking. "That's all I ask." Max hung up and sighed deeply. "That was unexpected." "It was," I agreed, my mind swirling with emotions. "But we're not rushing into anything." In the days that followed, we continued our routine, the call from Nora a lingering background noise. One afternoon, Max and I sat down to discuss it further. Do you think she really means it? I asked. I hope so, Max said. I want Claire to have her grandma, but not at the expense of our safety and peace. I'm not willing to risk that either, I said firmly. If we do let her back into our lives, it will be on our terms. Max nodded in agreement. Absolutely. We've been through too much to let her hurt us again. The decision loomed over us, but we knew it was one we had to make together. For now, our focus remained on creating a loving, stable environment for Claire. As I watched Max play with Claire, their laughter a soothing melody, I knew we had made the right choices to protect our family. And whatever the future held, we would face it together, stronger and more united than ever.